The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mindgarden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
It's the Sandy and Toddcast. It is episode 6 of season 14, and here we go. How are you?
Here we go. I
am Todd.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
No. Oh, my goodness.
She is Sandy.
And he is Todd.
Wow.
How could we forget that? We've been doing that every single episode for...
I will tell you how. I have a story to tell you.
Okay.
Work has been the most stressful I have dealt with since I've known you, okay? Mm-hmm. And by Wednesday of this past week, I was already in my Friday mindset of, I'm done. I am toast. I can't do anymore, whatever. So Thursday came around, and what I was finding was I was not able to deep think anything. Like if I had to, like when you're doing tasks, even if they're tasks that you do all the time, sometimes you have to think a little deeply to make sure you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's. Mm-hmm. Well, by Thursday, I couldn't do that anymore. There was absolutely no deep thinking. In fact, Wednesday, I loaded up to do a live broadcast from someplace. And on Wednesday afternoon, when I started setting up for it for Friday morning, I realized I'd forgotten a few minor things. Mm-hmm. Nothing big, right? But it was because I had given up on the critical, deep thinking that I needed to make sure I've got enough microphones. I've got, all. Okay. So, and this will freak you out a little bit. Okay. So, Thursday night, I grabbed the trash out of the trash in the kitchen, and I was going to take it out and then also wheel the bins out because Friday is when the trash guy comes. So I grabbed the trash and I took Draven out with me so he could go to the bathroom while I was doing this. Mm-hmm. Took the trash out to the bin, threw it in the bin, took that bin up front, then realized, because I wasn't thinking, that it was also recyclable day. So I walked back and got the recyclable bin and took that up front, and everything was ready to go. And I went back in the house and I started making a salad because that's what I was having for dinner, and did all that and went and sat on the couch and had no idea where my dog was.
Oh, no.
I had left Draven outside.
Oh, no.
So I get out of the house and I'm calling and there's no Draven.
Oh, no.
Luckily, I ran to the front of the house and he was walking down the sidewalk toward me.
Oh, my God.
Anything could have happened. I live on kind of a busy corner where my street is not busy, but the other street is very busy. That's how bad my week was last week.
Oh, my God. Thank God he was around. He was there.
I said, if something would have happened to that dog, I probably would have taken my life because I was that upset about it. But that's where my mind is right now. Like, I cannot deeply think about anything. So for me to not say she is Sandy, blah, 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 he is Todd, I'm not even able to really get that deep anymore.
Makes total sense, right? It makes total sense not to say it. It's funny. I'm like that at the end of the day. I sort of wake up with a lot of brain power and then I slowly go downhill during the day. And there are times when I'm loaded up with different podcasts that I'm editing and different things that I'm doing. And I'll say, all right, I'm just going to go downstairs for a few hours and I'm going to watch, the hockey game or the baseball game or whatever it is. And then around 9:30 or 10, I'm going to go up and do an hour or so work. And that works about 25% of the time because by that time of night, it's just wishful thinking on my part because I can't even process by the end of the night. especially in the times that we live in with all the stress that we're going through and the angst and the chaos. It's so easy to just shut down, even if it's subconsciously.
And even if you don't want to, like I like to kind of have that plan and know where I'm going and all that kind of stuff. So it was a real rough flipping week. And I don't know, weekends used to be downtime and all that. And I've always worked a little bit on the weekends, but
sure,
I am not going into the new week with very much rest and relaxation. I just want to mention one more thing. And that is that today I am shaving my head and my beard off for children's cancer.
You are.
You didn't see it on my Facebook. Well, you didn't see it on my Facebook page.
I've been trying to stay away from Facebook.
I know.
As much as I can.
So, I'm raising money. Today's St. Baldrick's Day. And so I raised $1,000. And the plan was if I could raise $500, I would shave my head and beard. And so today I will be doing that.
I'm so proud of you. I don't know what to expect from that.
I'll tell you what, I know this because for a portion of my adult life, I worked for a grocery chain, and you could not have facial hair. Right. So I know what that's going to be like, and it's not pretty. And but I've never, and I've shaved. I mean, I've taken my hair down very short in the past. But this will be the very first time since I've been a baby that I will be bald.
It's going to be interesting, Todd, because I'm so used to the perfectly coiffed hair and beard. I mean, I've seen you when it wasn't perfectly coiffed, but it was still pretty good.
Yeah. Like today, I'm looking at my hair today. It's really just bedhead, but it still looks pretty fucking good.
That's my point. It's like even on Sunday mornings when we record, here's me looking like, Sally off the street. And your hair is always like perfect looking. So, oh my God, I am so proud of you. This is why I love you so much. I am so proud of you. Good for you. I don't know what to, now it's going to be interesting to see which Todd I get in June. But we'll see.
Well,
does your hair grow fast?
Yeah, my hair grows very fast. And I would say today we're recording this on the 16th. I would say by the end of March, my beard will be not this long, but it'll be a good beard by that point.
Right,
so it'll only take me a couple weeks to really,
Oh, I'm so excited, kind of. I know you hate me for saying that, but I'm excited, kind of. I can't wait to see. You better send me a picture.
Maybe.
I want to see it. Are they going to do anything Facebook-wise on it, or is anybody else doing? Who else is doing it?
I'm doing it basically by myself. You can join groups that do it. There's a big event. I know there's big events all over the place today for this, but I'm just going to have it done locally, and then
I wish I had known, because I would have donated, definitely.
Well, the donation's still up there. You could throw in $5
I'm going to donate. So. I'm going to donate because I can't believe I haven't seen that.
That's okay.
And we don't get to talk as much during the week because of said stress and craziness now. So this is like our talking. We send each other weird like reels and stuff every once in a while.
Yes.
I remember years ago when we first met, five years ago when we first met, and we would have whole conversations with memes. Yep. And everything, and the innocent times back then.
Yeah, and then the world took a shitter, and
but yeah, so I'm very proud of you. So that's exciting. I can't wait. And Dave and I will definitely make a donation. I haven't been on Facebook much. Just I've been sharing a lot of things about what's going on in the world right now, but I haven't really sat there and just gone through everybody's stuff, because why torture myself even more than we already are tortured? So I just decided, cut down on it. I haven't been on even Instagram, which I actually prefer to Facebook. I haven't been on Instagram that much either. So just letting myself detox a little bit so that I don't have to deal with it, because it makes it worse. It just makes it worse. So a little bit of news. last Thursday. So everybody knows that we belong to a paranormal group called the Adirondack Park Paranormal Society, or APS. And on Thursday, myself, Damon, and Sarah recorded a podcast episode as guests for a great podcast called Adirondack Talks, and it's ADK Talks, and you can get it on all the major platforms. They actually have a website called ADK Taste, which highlights and showcases all kinds of different foods and activities and locations within the Adirondack region of New York. And wonderful website, great podcast. And they don't just talk paranormal, because actually we're kind of the exception, but they have done some paranormal stuff. But they talk just about all kinds of different things having to do with the Adirondacks, and they're really great episodes. I was listening to some of them the other day, and they're really, really good. And so we recorded an episode about paranormal investigations and the Adirondacks and the history of the Adirondacks and how they all fit together. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And so that will be out this Wednesday, and it's called ADK Talks. And yes, ADK Talks podcast. And again, you can find it on their website, Adirondack. It's www.adktaste.com, and then you can go to their podcast, and they're also on all the major platforms as well. So make sure you go over there, give them some love, check it out, give them a listen, maybe a follow, and let them know that you enjoyed it. They're great people. We've really, really enjoyed talking to them. We've been trying to get coordinated with them since last fall, but because APS does a haunted house to raise money for charity around Halloween time, it was just a really crazy, hectic time, and things have calmed down a bit now. So make sure you guys listen to that. It was really, really good. So I just wanted to mention that. And Todd, I wanted to talk about a couple of things that I saw in the kind of paranormal news lately.
Okay.
That I thought were interesting. One thing, there is a Navajo park ranger, and his name is Stanley Milford Jr. And I saw this article the other day, and I found it really super interesting. It was on NPR News, Colorado Stories. And I love NPR, all facets of NPR. NPR also does a separate YouTube, they call it the Little Desk series.
Yep.
One of my favorites, and you'd be amazed at the musical acts that come across and do this, and it's a very small setting. It literally looks like it's in a library behind a little desk, and it's just phenomenal. So NPR, everybody should check out NPR. They do a lot for the community at large, all across, the United States and more. So anyway, so Stanley Milford Jr., it says he has stories that most people wouldn't dare to believe. A seasoned Navajo ranger, he spent 23 years exploring the depths of the paranormal on the Navajo Nation. From hauntings and Bigfoot sightings to UFOs and the mysterious appearances of coins falling out of thin air, which I've never been able to explain things like that. A lot of people try, but they can't. And all of it happened on his watch, and it left a mark on him. It's not something that's easy to forget. So he is of Navajo and Cherokee descent. He's a Fort Lewis College graduate, and he published his memoir. And it's called The Paranormal Ranger. It's an account of his time as a Navajo ranger, during which he investigated supernatural occurrences around the reservation. He intersperses like his personal accounts and then with Navajo creation stories, which we all know that Native American creation stories are just absolutely fascinating. And I've always believed that, people tend to think of them just as stories, but I always believe that there's some truth, you know, in these stories, and even like the Greek and Roman gods and goddesses. I always have believed that there's some truth in it. It's not just a whim that people over the, you know, millennium have just come out of thin air. There's always some truth to some of these creation stories. And it's a personal account of his 23 years as a Navajo Ranger. And so the Rangers are part of the Navajo Nation's Division of Natural Resources, and they're tasked with protecting the lands and natural sites on the reservation. And Milford says, quote, "We were assigned to investigate cases that were out of the ordinary, involving what is commonly referred to as paranormal or supernatural haunting cases, Bigfoot cases, UFOs, extraterrestrial witchcraft," which I've never heard that term before.
That's new.
That's new. I got to look that up. And skinwalker related cases. You know, I love the skinwalkers, Todd. So skinwalkers are essentially evil spirits that can take animal form and often move on all fours. They're rarely discussed with outsiders unfamiliar with Navajo culture and beliefs. In The Paranormal Ranger, Milford shares some of these guarded stories, hoping to shed light on Navajo traditions and supernatural experiences. So essentially, I was just, believe it or not, before I read this article, I was just watching, what was that? I was listening to a podcast the other day. It was an old Coast to Coast AM, and it was clips with George Norrie. And there was a gentleman on there who was, who married into the Native American tribe. He was into Native Americans. He wasn't, I can't remember which tribe it was, but he said he was talking about skinwalkers and how essentially the way that they would become a skinwalker was by killing someone that they cared about. So it could be a family member, a loved one. And by doing that, and I'm very much simplifying this,
right,
but by doing that, and if you couldn't bring yourself to do it, you could get other people in the tribe to do it for you, but you had to essentially eat part of them. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. So it has been, the skinwalker tradition has been around for many, 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 many decades. And so skinwalkers have always fascinated me. So in this book, he talks about one of the investigations he was a part of in Window Rock, Arizona. And he says, in 2 days, there were 66 U.S. coins that would apport, meaning just appear out of thin air, and fall on the floor, or they would come flying across the room. Sometimes they would hit us investigators. Out of all of those 66 coins, they all landed heads up. I witnessed with my own eyes at least 10 of these coins falling out of thin air, out of nothingness. That for me was a life-changing experience. It made me realize that the coins had to be coming from somewhere, some other space. From that time, this phenomena followed me. I began having the coins appear in my home that would fall on the floor or fly across the room. Milford then juxtaposes his personal accounts of paranormal activity with Navajo creation stories that are in his book. These are the origin stories of the world and the Diné people. He says he drew parallels between the Navajo emergence stories and what he experienced with these paranormal cases. He says there's a different word that the Navajo people came from. They came into the physical world from 4 worlds or 5 lower worlds. When you look at the description of the beings described in those tales, they fit with what I saw with the descriptions of the Bigfoot and extraterrestrial or aerial alien beings. Milford noted he worked alongside 40 to 50 rangers as a Navajo Ranger, and today there are less than 10. So the name of the book is called I'm buying this book, The Paranormal Ranger, a Navajo investigator's search for the unexplained. And it's Stanley Milford Jr. And I highly recommend everybody get this book because I find myself, Todd, that in my journey through learning about myself and about the paranormal world, that not just the Navajo influence, but the Native American influence in general is very strong in a lot of the thoughts and ideas that modern day paranormal investigators welcome into the fold, have welcomed very much over the years. And again, I don't think that they're all hogwash. I don't think that they're all, we generally speaking have such this like egocentric perspective on the world, like it's our way or the highway. And I don't necessarily believe that. And so I do believe that there is some truth in all of the stories about creation and what the Native Americans bring to it and what the Greeks and Romans brought to it. I do believe that there is a lot to be said for that. And if you think about it over all of those years, a lot of what we know or believe we know today can be traced back to those stories. And so I think it's a fascinating book. I'm going to get it and I'm going to read it, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about it. So yeah, I saw that and I thought it was just so cool and just really, really neat. So there was one other story that I wanted to talk about too. And this is interesting. Have you ever heard of the Somerville Light?
Yes.
Okay. So you know that there's a lot of mysteries. The Carolinas, for some reason, have a lot of these. Somerville is a town just northwest of Charleston, South Carolina, and it has plenty of ghost stories aside from the Somerville Light. But basically, the Somerville Light is in the middle of the night. There's a dirt road with a nearby pine forest, and it follows. I mean, could this get any more like horror movie? Follows abandoned railroad tracks, and people have seen these mysterious lights that bob up and down. Sometimes they'll pulse, sometimes they're like blue, green, or orange. It's just all kinds of weird things. And it's been a mystery for many years. Now, the story is that along the tracks, a woman waited for her husband, who was a railroad worker, to return, but he died, losing his head in an accident. I love how they just make these into the most chilling, romantic,
of course,
love stories. So ever devoted, the widow searched for his remains. She continued even after her own death, and the flicker of her lantern is all that remains. So it's a goosebumpy kind of story to explain the Somerville Light. But what really is going on? And people have been trying to do this for years. So there is a seismologist, believe it or not, at the U.S. Geological Survey. Her name is Susan Huff, and she thinks that this supernatural story can be explained by natural phenomena. She was studying the area's seismology, and she scoured historical accounts, old newspaper articles, letters, and diaries for mentions of earthquakes. One book she found, Haunted Somerville, mentioned a big 1886 earthquake. So she got thinking, could there be a connection between earthquakes and ghost stories? And she says that some reports of the Somerville Light also mention that cars violently shook. Well, to a seismologist, that sort of screams what they call a shallow earthquake. So she thinks that at least some of them, the stories, the reports in that area, could be explained by very small earthquakes and tremors. Obviously, we can't know for sure, but she says what happens is that they basically shake what's at the threshold of your perception. So when that is occurring, it could actually make you feel as if something is happening that might not necessarily be happening. I don't know. She says that seismic rumblings during an earthquake no matter how big or how small, can actually produce mysterious glows. They're called earthquake lights.
Interesting. I've never heard of those.
Oh, I've never heard of that either. And so they've actually, seismologists and researchers have been actually researching this for quite a while, but nobody really talks about it because it's not anything for sure. But she thinks that it's definitely a possibility. So researchers have come up with several hypotheses for earthquake lights. One says that in the lead up to the shaking of the earthquake, minerals within the earth deform or break apart, freeing up electrical charges. And these charges can travel to the surface where they create electrical fields strong enough to make molecules in the air glow. Another explanation involves gases like methane released by earthquakes. Friction, such as that from seismic motion, can create static electricity. And so this isn't just her either. This is a lot of scientists and researchers who have been looking into this for several years to see what they can come up with. And so in Somerville, the old rail lines or debris left around the track could have been rubbing together to produce a spark for the lights. And will we ever know for sure? I don't know. But those are actually some very plausible options for what's going on. And they talk about, I know that people have talked about like swamp gas.
Right.
Over the years. You see a lot of lights.
Which is different, by the way. That's different from swamp ass, which is what you get when it's hot outside. Right.
Yes. And I have unfortunately known people with swamp ass, but nobody has had swamp gas in my life yet. So that's always a good thing, too. But yeah, so I thought that was a very interesting article because, you know, that's not the only place that kind of thing has been reported.
Well, it's kind of interesting because when you said Somerville light, I immediately thought of another story from Upper Michigan called the Paulding Light, which is another light anomaly that people have seen forever. And it really started in the 60s, and there's kind of a clearing in the woods where electrical lines go through, and that's where people see this light off in the distance. And, you know, again, it had one of those stories where it was about an old trainman who never wanted to leave his post to keep the train safe and all that kind of stuff. But after some research, there's some thought process that it could be distant car lights, that we're not seeing the actual car lights, but the refraction of the lights within the atmosphere and all that kind of stuff, creating these glowing lights in this clearing. And, you know, university researchers have gone out there and taken a look, and that's what they say. But again, is it for sure that? Hard to know. Some people say, yeah, it looks like car lights. Other people who have experienced say they've actually seen them moving and dancing around and all that kind of stuff. So,
well, you know, it brings me back to thinking about like 7th grade science class where they showed us prisms and we would shine light through the prisms and it would refract and it would be in a completely different place than what we thought it would be if it went straight through whatever it was we were holding up.
Right.
And I tend to think that things like that probably have a good explanation, you know, that's non-paranormal. The natural skeptic in me says that we as human beings build up these legends so much that, you know, it's much more romantic and exciting to think that it was, you know, someone, a railroad engineer who lost his life, or, you know, the lantern of the wife. But, you know, most of the time it's things that can be, you know, really explained away. Even if we don't want them to be, they really can be explained away. You know, it's like, and actually, doesn't that kind of, I mean, we all have experienced in life things where like there might be something in the air when you go to let's say you go to remember, because we're old enough to remember back in the days of concerts and stuff, like people would be smoking, you could smoke. And so the light from the concerts, like on stage would shine through, but it would be a whole different look than today when you go to a concert, because it was all refracted by the smoke. And,
Yeah, I mean, today you have to have a dry ice machine on stage to pull off the same thing that you didn't need back then, because everybody was a smoking chimney.
When you were setting yourself up for lung cancer back then, it was so much easier. So, and again, people will say, oh, well, how did this stuff just happen, in the last several decades? Well, look at Bigfoot. There weren't many known reports of Bigfoot before even the Patterson film.
Right.
Because people had their own explanations for things. It wasn't as easy to bring these things to light back then. But my sense is that if it's been happening in the last 4, 5, 6 decades, then it was probably happening in 1886 when the earthquake hit, and there were probably lights in Somerville back then, but nobody was around to see them, that kind of thing, So I tend to lean more towards the plausible explanations. Is it necessarily minor earthquakes? Is it just rumblings under, you can have earthquakes and never feel them on the surface. I think that's plausible. I really do. Is it as romantic and exciting and spooky as, the woman looking for her decapitated husband, her husband's decapitated head by lamplight? No, it's not as exciting, but it's more plausible, I think, to think that it could be the breaking up of minerals or gases in the case of swamp gas, where
sorry, every time I hear that, I hear swamp ass.
I know, or swamp ass. That in and of itself is just too much for me to think about right now. But I just thought it was an interesting way of looking at things. I as a paranormal investigator, especially rely a lot on scientific findings. And yes, science does not know everything. That's why we're always discovering things in science. That's why I say you can't rely 100% on science for everything, including the paranormal world, because there's a lot that science just does not know yet. But I tend to think that it does help to rely on science that we are aware of to explain some of these things. Don't we all want the truth eventually?
Some people do. Some people like to live in their own world. I will say this, kind of interesting, tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day. Right. And I would like everybody, I'm going to give everybody some homework as we're talking about folklore and all that kind of stuff. Today, if you think you know what who St. Patrick was and what he did and how he came to be, if you think you know all that, he drove the snakes out of Ireland and this and that, look him up, because you'll find out not only was he not from Ireland, but his name was not Patrick, and there were no snakes, and his color was not green, it was blue, and that St. Patrick's Day is another religious icon that took over another Druid celebration on the same day. So the reason why I'm tying this into it is these folklore things and these belief systems, we've been kind of fed a lot of stuff over the years that isn't necessarily 100% true. So take some time today, look that up. You can still have your green beer and your corned beef and cabbage, all that stuff you want to do, but learn about this. And learn about what that story really is and who St. Patrick really was. If you already know that, it's a very interesting story. If you've never really looked into it, you might be surprised. It's worth a good look into. Just Google him, and just like Google St. Patrick truth, and you will see everything that they don't necessarily tell you when you're down at O'Flanagan's bar on St. Patrick's Day.
Knowledge really is key. Keeping yourself aware, keep it in any walk of life. You have more power when you have knowledge, and it's got to be the right knowledge.
Wasn't what that wasn't something like that what they sang at the beginning of Schoolhouse Rock?
Yes.
Knowledge is power. Schoolhouse Rockin'.
I know, it's funny you say that, because as I was saying it, I was like, wait a minute, why does that sound familiar? So it kind of is like that. And Schoolhouse Rock, they should be bringing that back to kids.
Yeah, but not for kids. Adults need that now.
Oh my God, we sure do. We sure do, Todd. But,
learn.
I don't know.
I'm just a tariff, and here's how I work.
Do you know that I'm telling you right now, 90% of the population has no idea how a tariff really works.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. Kidding. I know the basics of it. I don't know everything there is about it. But when those little things on a Saturday morning kind of started going away, when we lost Fred Rogers, and now it sounds like Sesame Street is over or will be over and all that kind of stuff, we lose out on education in our homes. And as people get older and older, people get dumber and dumber.
It's funny you say that, because I grew up with, I'm just a bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only a bill. That's how I learned about the government for the first time in my life. I'm just a bill. Yeah. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill.
Yep.
And that's how I learned at age, whatever I was, 6 or 7. But that's my first foray into government. And, obviously it's changed quite a bit in, almost 50 years, but since I was 6 or 7. But education is really the key, especially in times like these, I think, where I don't think I know, where you can't just believe everything that's told to you. You have to really educate yourself and take it upon yourself so you can make the best informed decisions. We saw that recently, that people did not make the best informed decisions, and now we're in the shitter. And so knowledge really, really, really is key. So.
All right. Guess we're done with another bit of podcast.
I know. Just us kind of talking about random.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm all about it. And I love the interaction that we get from our friends and listeners and, followers. Guys, make sure you join our group, Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast. It's been kind of quiet over the last few months, I think, because everybody's been so absorbed with what's going on in the world. But in the country, put it that way. But I would really like everybody to join, and we're going to get things kicked up again. I have some ideas for some polls and some interaction, and it's just a safe space for us, regardless of what's going on in the rest of the country and the rest of the world. It's a safe space for us to talk and joke and bond and, be friends. So.
All right. I have to go get ready for my head shaving. So.
Oh my God, you better. Are you excited or a little?
So here's the thought process. I know I'm going to be very ugly and that's okay. I'm not overly worried about that. I'm more worried about the fact that after a 70-degree day 2 days ago, we have snow this morning, and it's going to be a little cold for the next 24 hours. So I'll probably be wearing a hat. Here's the other thing. I'm almost thinking I'm going to like the bald thing and might go that route. Although for me, that will be more work than having a full head of hair.
I know. It's going to be really difficult for me to process what I'm about to see.
I'm telling you right now, from the nose down, it is just a fucking freak fest. So,
it's funny when so this is the evolution of Todd and his beard and his hair. When we first met, much like today, coiffed, everything. And then as we got deeper and deeper into the pandemic, the beard was just growing and growing, and everything we were just like, fuck it. Who cares what we look like?
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
And then, obviously slowly over the past couple of years, now we've gone back to where, it's coiffed again and, and everything. And so it's just going to be like a total, those were at least kind of general,
slight changes. This is going to be holy shit. I'll tell you, my biggest worry is I'm so hairy that even when I go a little bit of time without like a haircut, I get a lot of hair on my neck and shit. So I'm going to have to trim that so that I don't have like all this back hair and neck hair.
Oh my God, I can't stop laughing right now.
Oh, you'll be laughing. Trust me. That'll be fun later on. So,
all right.
At any rate, we'll be back again next week or in a couple of weeks with another episode of the Sandy and Toddcast. Until then, bye.
Bye.
We make podcasting easy. Mindgarden Media can get you going on your very own podcast. With many years in the broadcast and audio industry, Mindgarden Media can edit, fully produce, and provide all the web distribution services. We're podcasters too, so we'll guide you every step of the way to a professional-sounding podcast production. For information, email the Mindgarden Media at gmail.com, the Mindgarden Media at gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook.